Why, hello there. So, a couple of nights ago, I beat the new Legend of Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom. I say beat because there's just so much to do. I've still never 100%ed but Breath of the Wild. Highly doubt I ever will, and I kind of feel the same with this game. There's just so much to do. I do intend to go back and play both of those games and do sort of a master file at some point. I probably won't go for all the Korok seeds. That's not really what I'm in it for. But I would like to explore a lot of the side quests that I didn't do. But anyway, I beat Tears of the Kingdom. I finished the story, and I was left wanting to just kind of talk about The Legend of Zelda, my history with the series, and what it means to me, and then also just kind of show off my collection. Um, so couple of caveats here. So my collection, I've been collecting, since the game came out. We got Legend of Zelda in 1988. It came out in 1987, but I remember with going with my grandparents to Children's Palace and picking some games, and I picked out The Legend of Zelda as one of them, and fell in love. It was so hard. I was 4 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I would just play and die and play and die. But just really became fascinated with the world. And then my dad would play it and actually be able to do something in it. Um, and seeing him progress and seeing all the mysteries that he would find, man, I just fell in love with that. And it really kind of uh, molded me into the gamer that I am. I love, like environmental storytelling. The actual story in those games was not, these walls of text. You kind of got it through just exploring. And so that's why I love things like Dark Souls, just because a lot of that is, just some item description, sure, but just a lot of, lore is just in what you explore and what you see. Um, so I've been with this series for a very very long time. It's one of my favorite gaming franchises ever. So much so that in first grade, I actually for Halloween went as Link. Um, that's how much the series has meant to me for so long. Um, but like I said, some caveats about my collection before we get into that. Um, I though I've been collecting for so long, didn't always keep the boxes for the games that came out prior to disc-based media. So as I'm showing these off, there's going to be a lot of replacement cases. They look really good, but yeah, I don't have for the early games. I don't have the original boxes or the inserts and things like that. I have all the cartridges, and I don't think I'll ever spend the money to try and get complete and box editions of all these games. These replacement cases work pretty darn well, as you'll see. They get the job done. But anyway, yeah. So Legend of Zelda came out in 1987. Again, I got my copy in 1988 when I was 4 years old, and it's just been a staple throughout all that time. There's just constantly a flow of Legend of Zelda games. It's one of Nintendo's most successful and profitable franchises, right there after Mario. And every entry tries to do something new for the most part. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll kind of go over some of my favorites, um, and then talk about maybe some of the ones that don't work as much for me. Um, but we'll go ahead and we'll just kick it off here with the first game. So, wrong way. The original Legend of Zelda. This is one of those replacement boxes. As I said, it looks really good. And, of course, I got that original gold cartridge there. For the first few games, every cartridge that you'd get would be gold, except for the one on Super Nintendo, which I'll discuss. So, yeah, the original Legend of Zelda there. And then we have the follow-up, what a lot of people consider to be the black sheep of the series, The Adventure of Link. It doesn't even have The Legend of Zelda in the title, actually. It's just The Adventure of Link. And again, we had a gold cartridge with that. Looks really cool. Very different to the first game. It's side-scrolling. It's got a lot of RPG elements. It's kind of hard. It's obtuse. A lot of the translation things going on in that were were a little confusing. Something kind of cool about it is all of the towns in there. They all are names that you'll end up recognizing later in the series as being the sages. So kind of a cool little thing there. So then we get to my favorite series, or in the series, which is A Link to the Past for Super Nintendo. Again, we didn't get a gold cartridge. What the heck, guys? You know, we get some gold cartridges after that. But Link to the Past did not have that. Nevertheless, my absolute favorite Legend of Zelda game. It took a lot of what the first game did and refined it, made it more accessible, added some cool story elements to it, and it's just such a classic. It perfected, and I don't think has ever really been outdone with just like the dungeon setting of, you know, you go and you find your map, you find your compass, and you find the item within the dungeon, and you use that to defeat the boss. It's just got a ton of content, tons of secrets. And even though it came out in 1991, it has been, and I think will probably forever remain, my favorite. I love it so much, in fact, that I actually own the Super Famicom version of it as well. Just the Super Famicom boxes are so much better, in my opinion, like compared to, and yes, this is a replacement, but this is basically what it looked like. Come on, like this, it's cool with the gold and everything, but I loved like the big VHS style thing. Super cool. So after that, the next entry that we had was actually on the Game Boy. And so this is Link's Awakening. And this game you will see is remade a couple times, but got my original cartridge there, which is cool. Super great game. One of the best on handheld. It is actually kind of a direct sequel to A Link to the Past. It apparently takes place, you know, shortly after, sometime after Link to the Past is over. Link is just going out adventuring, and finds himself washed up on a mysterious island. Great gameplay. Introduced jumping to the series, which super fun. Just a cool new dynamic, and just packed for a little Game Boy game. Again, you'll see some revisiting on that. So then the next game up is what I think a lot of people will consider his favorite, and it's one of mine. I pronounce this game differently than most people. I've done a little research into it, and both pronunciations are correct. Most people will say Ocarina. I say Ocarina of Time. Ocarina is not an incorrect pronunciation. It's just an alternative one, and that's how I grew up saying it. So, yeah, you know, you might all be saying Ocarina, but for me, it's Ocarina. And this, we went back to our gold cartridges. Super cool, right? So, you could only get this in the collector's version, which I had. I really wish I had the box for that. It's expensive to get that complete in box. But I remember getting that for my birthday in 1998. And I somehow, like my uncle, my mom, my grandma, they all got me 3 different strategy guides for it, which was super funny. They were all different. Like there was the official one, and then there was like these 2 unauthorized ones that were also out. So I had these 3 different strategy guides, and like some of the information was wrong, but it was pretty cool. But definitely one of my favorites. That jump to 3D was huge, and really it changed gaming forever. You know, we had Mario 64 before that, and in fact, initially in the development, they were kind of utilizing the same system, but somewhere along the way, they realized that they needed to really, you know, kind of break that system and use the parts that worked. In fact, it was getting kind of out of hand. It was going to be on the canceled N64 disk drive accessory, because it was getting so big, but unfortunately, it got canceled, and so they ended up having to kind of scale some of that back and cram in cart. And it's amazing that game works and fits on there. Absolutely one of the best. Um, regarding that disk drive system, there was also, for a long time, this rumored, like Master Quest version of the game where it was a lot harder and they had kind of redone enemy placement, and like no, like everybody just talked about it, but it didn't seem to ever exist. Huh, it existed, and we'll get to that. After that, we got our first remake of Link's Awakening, which is Link's Awakening DX. So that was put out on the Game Boy Color. So we took Link's Awakening and literally just added some new features. But the coolest thing was now we're playing this game in color. Remember on your Game Boy Color? Super cool. It was very, very basic, but just the fact that Link was green, as he should be, was super cool. And then it added a few extra little things in there. Mostly just the same game. I would say the definitive way to play the original version of this, because guess what? It gets another remake far, far later, and that game is fantastic. We'll get to that. But as far as like your handheld only version, this is the one. The other one, I have that just because I had it first. But this would be the way to play. So after that, we get a game that a lot of people love, myself included. Not one of my favorites, but definitely one of the weirder ones, which is Majora's Mask, which is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time. This game also had a gold cartridge, and I don't know if it's coming through well, but it had a cool hologram on the front. Pretty neat. So this game, like I say, direct sequel, you're playing as the same Link, but really has very little to do with what happened in Ocarina of Time. The setup is due to the ending of that. You're in search of Navi, but then you end up in this whole different world, Terminus, and really cool mechanic where you have 3 days to try and stop a moon from crashing into and destroying the world. When that happens, everything goes back and resets, and you have to, try and find a way to stop this over and over again. It's kind of like a Groundhog Day sort of thing. Super cool game. Both it and Ocarina of Time do get remakes later on, which we'll get to, and a couple other interesting releases that had those on there, like I said. So then we get a series of Game Boy Color and the first Game Boy Advance games. So these two games are actually taking the Pokemon route. Pokemon was super, super big in, the late 90s, early 2000s. So, of course, it's like, hey, let's hop on this. And so you have Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Two very, very different games. They do, connect, but the story's different. The gameplay is different. I believe it was Oracle of Seasons is much more like dungeon exploring and combat based, and then I believe it was Oracle of Ages, I believe, was the more puzzle based. It's been a long time since I've played these. However, they are going to be released on the Switch on the virtual console or whatever they're doing, through Switch Online. They have all these consoles, and that's something we'll talk about too. It's just the accessibility of some of these games. If you don't have the ability to get these cool cartridges, they look a lot like Pokemon Crystal, right? You see the battery, they're see through. So, you got that one there. I don't know. Did I show off Link's Awakening DX real quick? Let's do that. Black cartridge. I'm not sure if I showed that one off. It was cool because it was on a black cartridge. I like the unique cartridges. Anyway, though, so these two games, a lot of fun. Some of some of the best handheld games that you're going to find. And again, at some point they should be on the Game Boy Switch Online thing. After that, we got a remake or port, whatever, of A Link to the Past, and with it also included a game called Four Swords. And so this came out just before, I believe, the next game on the series, and it was kind of our first glimpse at what we were going to have. I know this came out right at that same time as Wind Waker, our next game. So I think everybody had seen Toon Link, and everybody lost their minds because They were expecting something just darker and grittier because at E3, I believe, Nintendo had showed off what the GameCube was capable with a little like tech video, and it showed like what basically looked like just like a better fidelity, better graphics version of Ocarina of Time. But that's not what we got though. This game's cool. For no other reason than you get a port of Link to the Past, my favorite Legend of Zelda game. But if you had this and you had another game down the line and you had 4 Game Boy Advances, you could do some cool, like almost like LAN party style stuff that are on. We'll get to that, but yeah, 4 swords on there, pretty cool. But again, for me, just to have Link to the Past portable at the time was the draw. Then we get to what at the time was a very controversial Legend of Zelda game. It now has, become one of people's favorites, most memorable, and I think that art style that we got that everybody was a little iffy on, it is timeless. And so while some of these games, as they moved on, they don't age as well. This one has aged like fine wine. And that's the Wind Waker. And so this is the point where in my collection we're really like, there's one more game you'll see, but this is where I have all the original boxes and stuff. Didn't replace those. Once we got the disc, it was easier to keep. I didn't think cardboard was going to be important. Silly me. So at this point, besides the one more game, I don't need to open everything. Everything is there. Wind Waker, super fun game. Very, very different. Again, it's just got this timeless quality to it. The story is fantastic. The exploration being on, the open waters and just going from island to island is super cool. It's got this mystery of like, what happened to Hyrule? How did we get to this point? And so it's definitely one of my favorites. During that time, there was also a couple of like pre-release bonuses. If you pre-ordered the game, you could get, various bonuses which were full on like disc with games. One of them is this is the collector's edition, which you got as a promo, and that included the original Legend Zelda, Link's Adventure, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, with a demo for Wind Waker. This is awesome. This made the GameCube the best place to play Legend of Zelda. You had virtually everything there. You didn't have Link to the Past, which is a bummer. Don't know why that wasn't on here. That would have been great. But we did have the Game Boy Advance port of it, so you could almost play the entire series. And if you had a Game Boy Advance, then you also had Link's Awakening as well as a copy of Link to the Past. So this made everything very accessible at the time. This is one of the harder things to find these days. It typically runs, $100 plus, on the aftermarket. So, one of my favorite things. But then also there was another promotional thing, which was the Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time Master Quest version. And this is what was long rumored to be out there, was that harder version of Ocarina of Time. In Japan, I think they call it Ura Zelda. And what this does is it flips the entire map. Like you're playing basically in a mirror world, and some of the enemy placement is different, and things hit harder, and you take more damage. So it is kind of like, for those people that want a real challenge, that have played the game a bunch but want something new, this is the way to play. So yeah, it was kind of cool that to see that this thing that was just a rumor was in fact real, and that they released it. You'll see on here, not for resale. I think this was bundled in with some GameCubes. That's how I got mine. I bought my GameCube, and I got this as well as Wind Waker. Wind Waker's my first. That's why I bought the GameCube, was for Wind Waker. Back in, I think the game released in 2002. I got mine in 2003. So yeah, these two pretty cool, harder to find. There was one more game on the GameCube. which is Four Swords Adventures, which, like I was saying, would connect with this. And again, it carries on that Toon Link style. Um, I'll be honest, not one that I played a ton of because I didn't have, you know, four GameCube controllers, four Game Boy Advances and all that to get the full experience. I know my buddy DJ and I, when we were renting a place together, we each had it, so we kind of played that way. But I never really got the full experience. So it's a shame. Like it's one of the least accessible games. It's not available, on any virtual console or anything like that. It was released like this, and that's pretty much it. They did do on the DS. They did a download like remastered version of Four Swords, but it was only available for a short time, and it's gone. You can't play it, which is one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent for physical media. We see these things disappearing, and now with like streaming services, shows that you've watched and enjoyed are just gone. And so like same thing, kind of back in the early 2000s, they did a little remake of that you can't get. It's a bummer because that was like an easy way to actually connect with people over the internet and get the experience. So yeah, be nice if they maybe brought that back. Anyway, I digress. So after that, there was one more game on Game Boy Advance. This is one of the shorter Legend of Zelda games. It's pretty unique, and it's actually one of the best. It is available to play on through the Nintendo Switch Online service. I don't know what all the things are. You get each one, and they have the expansions. You can play Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all that. But anyway, they came out with the Game Boy Advance one, and this game is on there, so readily available. It is one of the hardest games to find original copy of nowadays. It had kind of a lower print run, and it's expensive. You're looking 60, 70, 80 plus dollars if you want to try and get this. But yeah, check it out. It looks great. It holds up. And if you don't want that 20, 30, 40 hour plus Legend of Zelda experience, this is the game for you. And keeps that Toon Link style if you like that, which I do. So after that, we ended up getting a game that I was particularly excited for. I know a lot of people love this game. I don't think that it amounted to what we expected. It is great, but there's problems. This game was released on the GameCube as well, but I got this on the Wii. It's how and why I got the Wii. I was sitting there one day with DJ, who I mentioned, and I was like, man, I think I want to play this game, but I don't have a Wii yet. So we went out and found the game. We're looking for Wiis. They were nowhere. But back in the Dizzy, I knew the manager of I guess it was GameStop. What didn't they used to have a different name? Yeah, I don't remember. EB Games, maybe. Anyway, I went and talked to him, and I was like, hey, I know this is unlikely, but do you have any Wiis just hidden away? And he's just like, one sec, and comes back out from the back room, got my Wii, and then I got to play Twilight Princess. I do love this game. It's slow though. It's a slow start, and the motion controls were cool, but they weren't perfect. I will say later on in the video here, they ended up making this game better. But it's everybody kind of like thinks it's like, oh, it's like a better version. I say everybody. A lot of people like to think it's like a better version of Ocarina of Time. It's darker and it's there's a lot of slow parts, but I do love it, and it does have some amazing dungeon design. And you get to be a wolf. That's kind of where, like, that sounds cool. The wolf sections aren't the best. That's kind of what drags it down a little bit for me. And while the world is vast, it's empty. It's real empty. Ocarina of Time was kind of empty too, but it was more condensed. You travel a lot on horseback, and there's not a lot to do until you actually get to designated areas. nevertheless, still a great, great game. So, after that, we got into the DS era, and these are true sequels to Wind Waker. Uh, Phantom Hourglass picks up pretty much, shortly after that. You're still playing as that particular Link. This game is very, very stylus based. I love this game. It The exploration, in your boat, super fun. You're going and finding all these things. One of the things that people don't like is there's this central dungeon that you go to, and like you're constantly taking damage in it. So you're trying to like get better, stronger, so that way, you're not just always dying, but like your health is constantly being drained throughout it. Um, but it's super fun. They really utilized the DS's unique capabilities. Like sometimes you're just like blowing into the DS and making Link float up in the air. I think it's really cool. It's definitely worth checking out. This was available on Wii U as well. They did a port of it. Unfortunately, the Wii U um, uh, Wii U shop is gone as of March of this year, 2023. So you can't get any of these. So these aren't super expensive, but they're also not really all that cheap to find. But if you have a 3DS, you can if you can find a physical copy, you'd be good. 3DS eShop also closed, unfortunately. This is why I got the physicals, guys. So then after that, they did another sequel. This one, you're not playing the same Link. It's hundreds of years into the future, but the same world. And now, instead of a boat, you're on a train, and so you're traveling across Hyrule, doing train stuff. Zelda, something happens to her, a little unexpected, and it's got some pretty cool mechanics involving her new form, we'll say. Don't want to spoil that in case you do decide to play it. But also a really fun game. It's long. It's much longer, but it feels very brisk compared to Phantom Hourglass. Even though it is quite a bit longer than that, it's just there's always that forward momentum, and you're not just constantly going back to the same dungeon, going further and further in. So I think that you feel like you're making more progress in it. But both these games super great for the Nintendo DS. Then we got the Ocarina of Time 3D remake. To me, this is the way to play it now, guys. If you're really wanting to get that classic feel, you play it on your N64 if you got the cartridges, or you can go and play it through various means. It was available on the Wii U shop. It was available on Wii. You could play it on that disc I showed you, 2 different ways. But like most things nowadays, it is on the Switch. But for me, this is the way to play now on the 3DS. The graphics are better. The gameplay is really sharp. I feel like it controls better than using the old N64 controller. It just feels a lot more natural. They really did a great job of converting those keys and triggers over to the 3DS. It has some extra content in there, which is always good. For me, it's the definitive way to play Ocarina of Time, so highly recommend that. Then we got another game that ended up being rather controversial. I love this game. I think it has probably the best story in all of the Legend of Zelda series. And fortunately, though this game did, have some ill reception at the time, there is a better version of it now. But my wife got this for me for my birthday the year it came out, which is Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Awesome story. I love the exploration in it. The dungeon design, I think, may be the best in the series, but the motion controls were not great at the time. There's a pretty classic video you can watch on YouTube of Shigeru Miyamoto utterly failing to get Link to do what he was supposed to on stage. I believe it was at E3 again. they put out a peripheral, which was included with mine, um, and it made it better. It kind of stabilized things a bit, but it was just never perfect. You had to really fight against the game to get anywhere in it, and I did. Despite that, I still loved it. I think it's really underrated, and I'm glad that they ended up remaking it on the Switch, which we'll get to, because it fixed the controls in a lot of way. It looks better too. The game, the art style, I think is incredible, but it just didn't translate well for the time that it came out. Now that it's gotten the HD treatment, I think it really shines. And so again, we'll get to that. But Skyward Sword, underrated. Play it on the Switch though. So then we got Wind Waker HD on the Wii U. It's one of the reasons I got my Wii U in the first place. Zelda's going to sell a console to me. The Wii U kind of failed, but right now this and then the Twilight Princess remake that we'll get to here in a little bit, it's the only way to actually play these games. They haven't been ported to Switch. I really hope that they do. We're several years in, 6 years in on the Switch's lifespan. We'll see. Maybe if they ever end up doing like a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro or something, they'll port this and Twilight Princess, because they're great. It's the best way to play it. As timeless as the graphics are, they look sharper and better than ever before on the Wii U. It just looks like you're watching a cartoon. It's incredible. They again added some content to there. The gamepad, the Switch, the Wii U gamepad capabilities on there was super fun. That's going to be the part that would be maybe a little difficult to translate to the Switch. They'd have to kind of redo things a bit, but I have faith that if they did it, it would be well done. But awesome version, best version of one of the best Legend of Zelda games. So then we go on a little tear here with some more 3DS games. So Link Between Worlds, probably the best handheld Legend of Zelda game. It is half sequel, half remake to A Link to the Past. Takes place in the same world. Seems to be, just several hundreds, if not thousands of years later. Really unique, cool utilization of the 3DS's capabilities. Cool story, interesting gameplay mechanics. If you're going to get any one game on 3DS, get this. This game is fantastic. It's right there with A Link to the Past as one of the best. Check that one out. It's A Link Between Worlds. And then we got a remake of Majora's Mask. Much like the Ocarina of Time 3DS remake, ups the graphics, adds content. I would say definitive way to play this game as well. It runs like a dream. It plays like a dream. It kind of feels like a dream, being Majora's Mask. Not a whole lot I really need to go into on this one. It's the best way to play Majora's Mask. Check that one out. I don't like this game. Tries to do what Four Swords did, but instead with 3 people. It is cool. You can play it online, so that makes it fun, I guess. But it's not good. It's one of the worst Zelda games in my opinion. Triforce Heroes. I don't know. They were trying to do something there, trying to use the multiplayer element of Legend of Zelda and the 3DS and everything, but I think it's a stinker. I pass. Gotta have it because it's Zelda. Don't need to play it, in my opinion. Sorry, Triforce Heroes, you're not good. So then we got the port remaster, HD remaster of Twilight Princess. You'll probably sense the theme that these remasters are the definitive way to play the game, and they are. if you're going to go out of your way to play Twilight Princess, I would say this would be the way to do it. Hopefully, we again do get a Switch port at some point, but this is the definitive way. It's got some cool stuff with like amiibo support. This is what actually started my amiibo collecting because it came with Wolf Link in the collector's edition. I didn't have any amiibo at that point, wasn't interested. I have all the Zelda amiibo now, which I'll show you at the end. But it was cool because it would had like these capabilities to give you access to this. It's like the Cave of Shadows, something like that, which is like just super hard, like extra little dungeon area. And again, it had neat connection with the Wii U pad, so you could like see your map and stuff on that. So best version of Twilight Princess for sure. Check that one out. So then there was one more game on the Wii U, but like most people, I did not get it on the Wii U. This was the game that I got day one of the Switch, like a lot of people. When the Switch came out, I remember this was just so like just spur of the moment, super fun. My friend Jackie was just like, "Hey, I got it. I got this too. Why don't you come over and like we can just play this all day?" And it was just one of the most fun days that I've had. And we actually just recently recreated that a little bit with the latest entry. But this game kind of changed the game for a lot of people, and really showed not only what a Zelda game could be, but what just like an open world experience could be like. So, Breath of the Wild, you know it, you love it. Not a whole lot that needs to be said about it, except that it's fantastic. One of the best Legend of Zelda experiences. It's definitely lacking some of those core components that I love about Legend of Zelda, and I do miss it. But despite that, it's an incredible experience. There's so much mystery. The exploration is just incomparable until Tears of the Kingdom, which ups the game somehow. But Breath of the Wild, just one of the best games ever made. I said there's not a lot to say about it, and I ended up talking a lot about it because it's worth it, and it's worth your time. Also on the Switch, we finally get to that remake of Link's Awakening I mentioned. So we got the Switch version of Link's Awakening, which was totally unexpected for me. I had no inkling that they would do something like this. They ended up, kind of keeping that same style. They did like a 1-for-1 remake, a couple extras put in there, but I mean, they kind of just took that base game and made it in this new modern HD 3D landscape, and it's great. This game is fantastic. It's pretty easy, I'd say. It'd be a great game for a younger Zelda fan for sure. I think they'd really like the art style in it. It's a wonderful game. It's I say this a lot. The best version of Link's Awakening. Definitely check this one out. And then we ended up getting redemption for Skyward Sword. This fixed everything. It fixed the controls. It made what was an incredible game that was being held back by the controls way easier to play, and is, I think, one of the best Zelda games that they've ever made. If you like Breath of the Wild, then say thank you to this game. It introduced a lot of the ideas and components that you'll end up seeing. Stamina, the traversal, just, so many elements in there, like the kind of deeper story to it. You owe it to yourself to try this if you haven't. If you heard that, the controls suck, play this version. You will see they don't suck anymore. It's very, very fun. It's one of the best. Skyward Sword HD on the Switch. Try it out. And then finally, there's a couple of extra little things, but finally, as far as main series entries go, we come to the latest, the one that I have just completed a couple days ago. Completed, yeah. That'll never happen, but that I finished the main story of Tears of the Kingdom, direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. Duology. They to me, playing this without this, it'd be silly. I'm sure there's people that are doing it. You're silly. Don't do that. Play this first. It's the story, ties directly into it. I like this more than Breath of the Wild. Maybe that will change over time as I revisit them each, but currently, this is better than Breath of the Wild. It's like Breath of the Wild plus. Everything in it is just, hey, you like this in Breath of the Wild? Here's more of it. Hey, you didn't like that, you wanted to try and do this thing in Breath of the Wild? Well, now you can. It, gives you this huge toolbox, that uses just a few tools, actually, but so it's not a huge toolbox, small toolbox, but just a huge amount of things you can do with those tools. Some people don't like the building element to it. You know what? I actually didn't feel like that I was doing a lot of building. Some people are making, Metal Gear and Gundams and things like that. I just used it in a very utilitarian manner, had some fun here and there, did some silly stuff. I certainly, didn't go crucifying Koroks or making giant flaming, but I had some fun doing some silly stuff and just seeing where I could push it. And turns out, I think 21 is the limit to how many things you can attach with your Ultra Hand. Yeah, Link loses an arm and gets somebody else's. It's wild. It's amazing. The story in this one, incredible. Right there with Skyward Sword, as far as just being really, really story heavy. The exploration is somehow more massive than Breath of the Wild, and then some. Like, there's something in this that I did not even know. I've avoided almost all the trailers. My buddy Jason kind of forced me to watch this one, and it still didn't really even give away that there was just a little bit more to this game than I thought. This game is incredible. It and Breath of the Wild, check them both out. They are some of the best games ever made. That brings us to the end of our main series games, but there are a couple extra little things that I have here. Back on the Wii U, there was this spin-off game, Hyrule Warriors. It's a lot of fun if you like Musou games, like Dynasty Warriors and like Fire Emblem Warriors, things like that. It's a Warriors game, basically what it is, but with Legend of Zelda characters. It's non-canon, but the story is wild. It's super fun. You could almost be like, oh, this is a what if, because there's like lots of crazy time travel stuff, which is now in the main series, in like a big way. Like Ocarina of Time had time travel, but it wasn't. It was just kind of back and forth. Like you weren't really seeing all this wild stuff. Tears of the Kingdom goes buck wild, by the way, with the time travel. So look out for that. But this game, the timeline's being meddled with, and you get to play as all these classic Zelda characters and some weird new characters that they added in there. It's a lot of fun. They actually ended up doing a Switch version that added even more to it. So it's like Hyrule Warriors and more. There's more characters, including Linkle, and there's no reason to play the Wii U one now. Play this. This is not a game I would ever recommend trying to complete. Just play it for story, have fun with it, but there's too much to do in this. I suppose if you only can have this game and like, hey, you'll never get bored with it. You'll be playing this for years trying to complete it. So that's cool. That's not me though. I can't go through this whole game. But it is great. That's a lot of fun. In addition to that, they also did a sort of a sequel to both Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So it's a sequel to Hyrule Warriors in name and like some of the gameplay, but it's an actual like story, I guess, prequel to Breath of the Wild. It kind of shows what happened during the Age of Calamity before, the 100 years that go by before Link wakes up. So super cool. You get to see a lot of neat story stuff. I don't know where this stands as far as like canonicity. I think it's semi-canon. Like it's like, yeah, this stuff happened, but it's not really part of the main timeline because it's spin-off. But I think if it slots in perfectly well. I mean, it looks like Breath of the Wild. There's sections that even kind of play like it. It's less Hyrule Warriors than it is Breath of the Wild in some regards. It runs like crap, by the way. It's a real shame. I would love to be able to play this game running smoothly. Maybe again, if they ever do like a Switch 2 or Switch Pro, you can put your card in and it'll actually run halfway decent. But I mean, it chugs along. It's a shame because it deserves better than that. But Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, super cool game. Then we have this weird little game. There's this game called Crypt of the Necrodancer. It's this weird rhythm game where you're going through these crypts and dungeons and stuff, moving along to the rhythm, fighting enemies. It's really neat. And for some reason, they teamed up with Nintendo to make a Legend of Zelda version where you can play as Link and Zelda. Cadence of Hyrule. Cadence is the main character of Crypt of the Necrodancer. It's bizarre. It's awesome. It feels like Zelda still. It's got that cool 2D, top-down element going to it, but you're just dancing along, to the rhythm in these dungeons, just moving square by square. I highly recommend this game. It's not going to be for everybody. If you don't like rhythm games, may not like this, but maybe give it a shot. Like sometimes just that Zelda brand and influence will come through. So Cadence of Hyrule, weird little spin-off, definitely worth checking out. So finally for games, I made a video of this last year showcasing this little item. For the 35th anniversary of Legend of Zelda, they put out this Game & Watch. And so this has the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 Adventure Link, and then Link's Awakening on here. So it is an official way you can play Link's Awakening, the non-DX version. So, I love accessibility options. I love, like being able to play these games. I have, physical hardware for all these things that I can play. I can play my Game Boy games still. But if like you have that cart and you don't have a Game Boy, it's not always easy. This lets you play the original black and white Link's Awakening. So something really cool about that. I don't need to say a whole lot about this. If you want to, you can go check out my video where I talked about this. It's super fun, super cool. It's a neat little doodad to have. But yeah, that's the last little bit of gaming stuff. But in addition to that, my love of Legend of Zelda runs deep, so I had to have these tomes here. So the first one that came out was the Hyrule Historia. I remember being super, super sick. I had the flu, was just miserable in bed, and my wife, Shannon, surprised me with this, and I just laid in bed just reading this cover to cover. It establishes the timeline, which, man, Zelda timeline is weird, man. You can sort of say that the official timeline is somewhat accurate, but man, Nintendo don't know. They didn't make these games with a timeline in mind. They just started slotting things in where they kind of fit. And now Tears of the Kingdom really calls a lot of that stuff into question. For me, some of the games are connected, but I honestly just think of a lot of these things as just interpretations. It's the Legend of Zelda, right? It's almost as though, these stories are the same story being told over and over again and warping and manipulating based off of how much time has passed. So I look at them as just like, some old man or old men, old women, old people, telling the Legend of Zelda through various times, and that's the games that we're getting. It's just their interpretation of that story. But maybe it's just all just the same story, right? Hyrule Historia just goes into a lot of the creation of the series as well as the story element. There's also next the Art and Artifacts, which is basically just an art book. It's huge. It's I think maybe the biggest one, and it just shows lots of different artwork from the series and like different depictions of items and things like that. The artifacts, Master Sword, the Hylian Shield, things like that. Then you have the encyclopedia, which is just resources. If you just want to go and like look at something really quick, you can see various things from the games. It'll just like show different items that you can get. You got like databases, things like that. You have a big page here just about rupees. common staple in the Zelda game. These books are cool just because they all correspond in color to one of the Triforces. You know, you got what, courage, wisdom, and power, all right there, which is pretty neat. Um, Finally, there's a fourth book in the series, which is specifically for Breath of the Wild. I'm really hoping that they do a fifth one for Tears of the Kingdom. We shall see. But then you have Creating a Champion. This is basically, it's like all three of those books combined, but just for Breath of the Wild. It has all those elements in it. These four books are super, super great for any Legend of Zelda fan. Um, they just all sorts of interesting background, and you kind of can suss some things out that maybe aren't really apparent in the game itself. So highly recommend that if you're a big Breath of the Wild fan. Um, there's a lot of stuff I don't have. My collection is by no means complete. I don't have, like, there's like a manga box set which I intend to get at some point, and because there's like a manga for almost every game. I'd love to have that. I don't even have every game. I don't have the original Famicom Disk System version of the first Legend of Zelda. Uh, that was Japanese only. Don't have that. There was some games you may have heard of that kind of are infamous that were on the CDI. They're non-canonical. They weren't made by Nintendo, but they were licensed out. Was it Samsung, something like that, or Philips? Philips, I think it was the company. They're awful. They're a curiosity, and I've watched through playthroughs. I don't need to own those games. They're really expensive to get too, and I'm not gonna go and spend that kind of money just to be a completionist in that regard. There's also, like I said, I don't have the GameCube version of Twilight Princess. I don't have the Wii U version of Breath of the Wild. Didn't really see a need to. Like, the versions I have are my versions, right? So that they would just be, just for the sake of having, which I don't feel the need to do. Same thing for, there was two ports of the original Legend of Zelda and then also Link's Adventure on the Game Boy Advance. They're just straight ports. There's nothing to them that's extra. They're not necessarily worth it, except for, hey, look what I have, and I have those games in their original form. I'm good in that regard. So yeah, like, my collection is, again, by no means a complete collection, but it's pretty thorough. It's pretty in depth. And so the final thing, I do have all of these, is my amiibo. Again, I never thought I'd be someone that collected amiibo, and I still don't just go for everything. I do have all of the Metroid amiibo, because Metroid's another one of my favorite series, and I have the Dark Souls Solaire amiibo, which is a weird little curious thing to have, but and actually you can scan it in Breath of the Wild. It's weird, but I had to have all of the Zelda amiibo once I started going down that path. Breath of the Wild had functionality for everyone, so that kind of sold me on that. Yeah, you can get the little cards or chips or whatever, and just get them that way for the in-game rewards. But for me, I needed to have all of them. So we'll go ahead and end the video just showcasing that. I know this is a long one. I know I ramble, but Legend of Zelda, it means a lot to me. It's been with me practically my whole life. It's my first video game love. I love a lot of series. At times, I would say there's series I love more than Legend of Zelda, but when it really comes down to it, Legend of Zelda has been with me for so long, and probably means more to me than any other series. It's just that constant, as far as video games go for me. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed me showing off my collection, and we'll go ahead and show off the amiibo. So look here, we got all the links right there. And then we got all the various iterations of Zelda herself. Got our 4 champions from Breath of the Wild. And then, of course, we got Ganondorf. We got, what is it, a Bokoblin, Moblin, whatever. And then, of course, a Guardian from Breath of the Wild there. You'll see also, just a little sneak peek, I plan on doing something for Final Fantasy when Final Fantasy 16 drops. Also, a game series that means a lot to me. So, just a little sneak peek of things to come. All right, guys. Thank you so much if you stuck through on this. I really appreciate it. Legend of Zelda rules. Bye.